Hello, friends, and welcome back to Stories About Entitled People. Our first story will be told on behalf of the draftsman at an architectural firm. Our OP's client turned out to be a pain in the butt, but the end result was great. The house was never built. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. Need me to make changes? Not a problem. I'm a draftsman for an architect, and most of the time my job is pretty good. Dealing with this client was not one of those times. I do have to give some background information to understand how our office works. I've realized a lot of people don't understand the process, so bear with me. The way our office works is a client will present what they want done with their project, and once that's done, we create the preliminary floor plan. After some back and forth and they give approval of those plans, then we create the preliminary elevations. Once we get approval for that, we do the construction documents, and that's the end of the project. Our office is pretty simple compared to others, but the gist of what's done is similar. Unfortunately, it's not always that simple, and people believe they can request whatever they want because the customer's always right. The problem client will be known as Bitchy Psychiatrist because that's what she is. She came into our office with a floor plan that she liked, and we modified quite heavily. She gave approval for the floor plans, and I got started on the elevations. When I sent her the first draft, she was appalled by how bad it looked. Her complaint was, and I quote, "Why doesn't it look like the picture I brought you?" My boss and I explained to her when we made the modifications that the house would not look the same, but that fell on deaf ears. BP insisted that we make it right, or she would take her work elsewhere. Boss didn't want to lose a client, so I had to deal with this woman for another 2 weeks, modifying her plan and elevation back and forth. Tons of wasted time, but she finally agreed to the plan and elevation. Since she approved the preliminary drawings, I finished the construction documents and sent her on her merry way to have her big brick house. 2 weeks later, BP strolls into our office and exclaims that the contractor gave her a bid and her house was going to be too expensive. She wants us to redraw everything, free of charge of course, because it was our fault. Not true, but she didn't want to listen to us before about the changes to her plan, so I can't say I was surprised. BP now wants her house to be half siding and half brick to bring some of the costs down. Normally this wouldn't be an issue, but the problem BP was going to run into is the subdivision covenants. This subdivision required that every house has brick or quarried stone for their entire exterior. I knew this because we've done a ton of work in the subdivision. With this information, I proceed to ask BP if she's allowed to make those changes. She basically tears off my head for questioning her. I apologize for upsetting her and state that I'll begin on the work right away. I make the changes as she requested and complete the construction documents, but before she's allowed to take her drawings, I make sure my boss receives payment from her. A few weeks later, I get a call from the owner of the lots in the subdivision asking me about BP's plans. He asked me why she presented plans at the covenant meeting that didn't meet requirements. I stated that she insisted the changes would be fine and assumed you'd given approval. The line goes silent on his end as he starts to realize why I did what I did and just says, "Gotcha." I found out a few months after that BP never started construction since she couldn't meet the requirements of the subdivision. Not sure if she ever did build her house. And our second story. Finding out I got the job my arrogant family friend, who told me I was stupid, got rejected from. I have a close family friend who I grew up alongside. We had an intense rivalry when we were kids, and he loved to make fun of me. One of his favorite insults was to call me stupid and make me feel super incompetent. I remember a particular gathering when I was in year 7 when I jokingly confessed that I messed up a math test. He then spent the rest of the evening telling everyone at this gathering that he was a straight-A student and that I was a failure. Verbatim. He makes digs about me being an idiot routinely for years, and at one point it genuinely affected my self-esteem. Anyway, our families grew apart. I got older and stopped seeing him for several years. Last week, though, I went to his sister's wedding and our families were talking. His mother mentioned that he applied for clerkships at the top-tier law firms in our city. We're both law students, by the way, and he was rejected by them all. Everyone else then tried to console him. He was visibly irritated by this and commented things like, "Oh, it's really competitive." Hardly anyone gets in these days. I didn't say anything, but then his mother asked me if I was working, and I said yes, and she said where. At first, I contemplated saying something like, oh, just a place in the city, but then I decided it was too good of an opportunity to pass up, so instead I chose to look him straight in the face and name one of the firms he was rejected from. Everyone went silent for a minute, and I can't explain how satisfying it was to see the astonished look on his face. Just to clarify, though, I don't think grades or a fancy job are a measure of intelligence or a person's worth at all, but he definitely does, and it was just a really pretty win for me because the guy was a total jackwagon. Edit. I'm a 22-year-old female, and his mom's actually quite sweet, a lovely woman, so I have no idea how he turned out the way he did. He also wasn't really a friend of mine. Our families were quite close, so I saw him all the time growing up. I stopped going to events he was at when I got older. For anyone curious about the rest of the night, someone else changed the subject, and I didn't see him again after that as his family was quite busy because it was his sister's wedding. Sweet, sudden, petty revenge is a dish best enjoyed with other people. Congrats on the job. And our next story. Give him a raise. I've been the victim of some confused ladies in the past, but this interaction is the only one that was interesting. And this is my first post with dialogue, so I don't know how it's going to look, but enjoy. I was going to the cinema with my friends. There was no traffic, and I ended up arriving early. So to kill time, I went to a nearby store to look to buy some cheap sunglasses. Then an old lady comes in. I'm me, old lady is OL, RE is real employee. OL, where are the cigars? I want one for my husband. It's his birthday next week. I've never worked there. The employees wear suits and I was wearing jeans, but I'd spent many hours there, so I did know the place, and the lady was very sweet. Oh, in the middle of the store, after the last bookshelf, on the top shelf behind the glass wall. Thanks, young man. No problem. Have a nice day, and happy birthday to your husband. After no more than a minute, she comes back. Okay, no problem. So I proceed to help her read the prices, flavors of the cigars, doing mental math to help her decide what was the best bang for the buck. After 5 minutes, a real employee comes over. Hi, my name's Real Employee. What can I do for you? Me. This lady wants to buy a cigar. Could she take a closer look at this box? Old lady looking at me. Wait, you don't work here? Sorry for making you lose your time. Me. No problem. Real employee. Well, we're currently understaffed and hiring. Would you like to be an employee here? Old lady. Hire him and give him a raise. I declined the offer because I was just in the city for a few days to visit my parents. And our next story. I don't need a booking. I'm a friend of the owner. So when I was young, my mother worked for a car dealership owned by this really nice older guy. Like, this guy was really well off, very well spoken, not what an American would think of as a posh American accent, not that extreme, but if you're English, you've probably got a good idea. He owned the dealership, the building, the land, and at least half a dozen other businesses in the area, and most of the land and commercial properties in the town. But for all that, he was also the kind of guy who would hear that his staff's 14-year-old child was getting a hamster and go, my daughter used to have a hamster. And 3 days later, he just gave my mom like 400 pounds worth of Rotostack hamster stuff. Every year, he'd do up the whole showroom for Christmas, dress up as Santa and give out presents to the kids in the area, etc. Anyway, the reason I remember this was because it was the day my mom took me over to her work so I could say thank you for all the hamster stuff. So we got there, and we were waiting for him to be free. I was talking to the people at the desk because I knew all of them, when suddenly we hear this woman's raised voice. Looked over to see this old woman, at least old to a 14-year-old. She may have been, somewhere between 40 and 60, with the owner. And she was absolutely laying into him because they couldn't do whatever it was she wanted. Now, everyone working there always wore a red jumper, but not a name badge because everyone's desk had a nameplate. By chance, I was wearing a reddish jumper, not the same red, not even a particularly similar red that day. The woman comes up to me. I can only assume she must have been short-sighted or something because my 14-year-old face did not look anywhere near working age. I could more easily have passed for a 10-year-old than a 16 or 17-year-old, and my entire work experience at that point was helping to put magazines in envelopes to post for like 3 pounds per 250. Okay, I need to book my car in and loan a car. Me. Oh, the service desk is over there. No, I didn't sound like an adult either. No, Go get it sorted. I need to be gone in 10 minutes. I'm sorry, I don't work here. I don't even... At that point, she cut me off and went off. I don't have time for your excuses. I need to be gone in 10 minutes. Now give me that loaner car, you stupid child. A moment later, a hand comes down on my shoulder. I look up, and who is it? Yep, it's the owner. He says, I'll handle this, AXW. How can I help you, madam? I backed off to the service desk and watched. The service guys were already giving WTF looks to each other, but the woman just got louder and shriller. I am a close personal friend of John Jeffries, the owner. Now I need my service in a loaner car. Do you have a booking? I don't need a booking. I'm a friend of the owner. Unfortunately, ma'am, the workshop is fully booked today, but we can book you in for a later date. You'll do it today. That's it. Who do you answer to? At this point, everyone in the room and some back office staff were looking at her. This is where the owner gave an answer that I will never forget because it was so calm and so quiet. Madam, I answer to no one but God. What? That's it. What's your name? You and that disrespectful child are gone. John Jeffries, the owner. And to the best of my knowledge, we've never met. Also, that child is literally a child, not an employee. She kind of froze, then he gestured to the organizational chart, the thing they used to have on the wall with his face right at the top of it, right above the word owner. She left and earned the ignoble quality of being one of only 2 customers who we ever wrote to saying, you are no longer welcome at our business, in over 35 years of owning the company. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.